At this exact moment, as you're watching this video, 47 million American families believe they are on the verge of receiving an inheritance that will permanently transform their lives. They're wrong. And when the truth finally becomes clear, there will be no opportunity left to respond. $124 trillion. According to Cerulli Associates' 2024 analysis, that is the precise amount expected to change ownership in the United States by the year 2048. The media calls it the largest wealth transfer ever witnessed. That claim is false. This is not a transfer. It is a consolidation, a mathematical certainty unfolding directly in front of you. And if you think you're one of the people who will benefit, there is something essential you need to understand. You are not seeing wealth being distributed. You are seeing it being compressed into fewer and fewer hands. And this process follows a pattern, a four-stage pattern that has erased the middle class of every major civilization in history. Here's what almost no one tells you. This pattern is so consistent, so mathematically precise, that once you identify it, you can observe it unfolding in real time. Stage 1, the foundation. A nation creates a currency backed by something tangible, gold, silver, something with real intrinsic worth. Trust is established. The economy expands. People begin to believe the system will last indefinitely. Stage 2, expansion and debasement. Government spending increases. Wars, welfare systems, imperial ambitions. And governments do what they always do when pressured. They quietly weaken the currency. Precious metal content is reduced. More money is printed. Officials insist nothing has changed. Stage 3, loss of control. Inflation accelerates. The currency collapses. And here is the critical point. The middle class, holding their savings in that weakened currency, is destroyed. Meanwhile, those closest to money creation, elites, landowners, politically connected insiders, survive. They accumulate even more. Stage 4, the reset. A new currency is introduced. Wealth has moved from millions of people into the hands of a few thousand. The system restarts, and the public never realizes what happened until it's already over. Let me prove this using 3 different civilizations across 2,000 years. Same pattern, same outcome, every single time. Rome, 64 AD. The city is burning. Emperor Nero desperately needs money. The denarius, Rome's silver coin, once contained 95% pure silver under Augustus. Nero reduced it to 80%. That marked the beginning of Stage 2. 130 years later, under Septimius Severus, that same coin contained only 46% silver. Then, in 215 AD, Caracalla introduced the Antoninianus, claimed to be worth 2 denarii while containing only 1.5 times the silver. Monetary deception on a civilizational scale. By 253 AD, the Antoninianus held just 20% silver. 10 years later, only 2%. 2% silver in what had once been the most trusted currency on Earth. Prices exploded by 1,000%. Small landowners lost everything. The wealthy, those holding land and gold, consolidated power. The Roman middle class was wiped out. Check the stages. Stage 1, Rome establishes a trusted silver standard. Confirmed. Stage 2, extended debasement to fund wars and expansion. Confirmed. Stage 3, hyperinflation and the destruction of middle-class currency wealth. Confirmed. Stage 4, currency reform and elite consolidation. Empire irreversibly weakened. Complete. Now move forward in time. Weimar Germany, 1921 to 1923. After World War I, Germany owed 132 billion gold marks in reparations, more than 500 billion in today's value. Germany had abandoned the gold standard during the war. They lost. Now they were required to pay in gold-backed currency they scarcely possessed. The Weimar government made its decision. Instead of increasing taxes or cutting spending, they printed money. Watch how rapidly it accelerates. By mid-1922, the exchange rate reached 320 marks per dollar. 6 months later, it was 7,400 marks per dollar. In January 1923, France and Belgium occupied the Ruhr Valley. Germany responded by printing even more money to pay striking workers. By November 1923, $1 equaled 4.2 trillion marks. 4.2 trillion. A loaf of bread that cost 160 marks at the end of 1922 now cost 200 billion marks. Families who had saved for generations watched their life savings disappear within months. Anyone holding cash was wiped out. Anyone holding land, gold, or foreign currency made it through. The wealth of millions was absorbed by a tiny elite in less than 2 years. Now apply the model. Stage 1, Germany operated under a gold-backed monetary system before the war. Verified. Stage 2, currency expansion combined with crushing reparation obligations triggered massive printing of unbacked paper money. Verified. Stage 3, inflation surged to 2,500% per month in October 1923. Total economic collapse. Middle-class wealth erased. Verified. Stage 4, the introduction of the Rentenmark. In November 1923, wealth consolidated at the top. Pattern repeated. Undeniable. Now to the most recent example. August 15th, 1971, President Richard Nixon addresses the nation and suspends the dollar's convertibility into gold. The Nixon shock. For 27 years, since Bretton Woods in 1944, the U.S. dollar had been anchored to gold at $35 per ounce. Every major currency was tied to the dollar. This formed the backbone of the global financial system. But by 1971, the United States was hemorrhaging gold. Foreign governments demanded redemption. U.S. reserves had fallen to approximately 10,000 metric tons, less than half of their peak levels. On August 11, 1971, Britain alone demanded $3 billion worth of gold from Fort Knox. Nixon had no alternative. He closed the gold window. Overnight, the dollar became a fiat currency. Within 15 months, the Bretton Woods system collapsed entirely. What followed next? Inflation. The 1970s ushered in an era of stagflation. Unemployment rose to 6.1%. Inflation climbed beyond 5.84% annually and continued accelerating. Those holding dollars watched their purchasing power erode. Those holding assets, real estate, gold, equities, thrived. The wealth gap began widening in a systematic and measurable way. Stage 1. The United States established a gold-backed dollar as the world's reserve currency under Bretton Woods. Verified. Stage 2. Decades of deficit spending, war financing, and monetary expansion drained gold reserves and forced debasement. Verified. Stage 3. The gold window closed. Fiat currency was unleashed. Inflation eroded savings. Middle-class purchasing power declined steadily. Verified. Stage 4. The current system. Floating fiat currencies, wealth inequality at historic highs, pattern repeating once again. Verified. Which brings us to today, and the $124 trillion wealth transfer everyone keeps talking about. Here's what actually matters. As of 2024, the top 1% of Americans control 30.8% of total wealth. 49.2 trillion. The bottom, 50% hold just 2.8%. Total U.S. household wealth now stands at $163 trillion, the highest ever recorded, inflated by surging stock markets and soaring real estate values. But here's the detail that collapses the narrative. Of the $124 trillion expected to transfer, $62 trillion originates from the top 2% of households alone. And where does it end up? Right back at the top. Millennials and Gen Z expect to inherit $46 trillion and $15 trillion, respectively. But Northwestern Mutual RS 2024 study shows only 26% of Americans actually plan to leave an inheritance. 1/3 of millennials expect one. Yet only 22% of boomers and Gen X intend to leave anything behind. The expectation gap is massive. Millions are relying on wealth that simply doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the median inheritance for the bottom 90% of Americans is nearly zero. For ordinary people, the wealth transfer is a myth. For the elite, it's consolidation, and it's happening through the exact same pattern. So let's verify every stage for the United States right now. Stage 1. Did America establish a trusted currency system? Yes, the gold-backed dollar under Bretton Woods. Verified. Stage 2. Has America experienced decades of currency expansion and debasement? Absolutely. Since 1971, the dollar has been pure fiat. The Federal Reserve has expanded the money supply at an exponential pace. The national debt has now crossed $36 trillion. Verified. Stage 3. Are we seeing control slip away? Currency weakening and wealth concentration? Beyond dispute. Real wages have been flat for decades. The top 1% now holds wealth equal to the bottom 90% combined. Inflation has returned. Housing is out of reach. The middle class is being hollowed from the inside out. Verified. Stage 4. The unavoidable conclusion. It is unfolding right now. This so-called wealth transfer is the reset, the consolidation, the mathematically inevitable endpoint of 50 years of fiat currency expansion. Complete. You're already thinking it. This time is different. America is exceptional. We have technology, innovation, flexibility. That's exactly what they said in Rome. That's what they said in Weimar Germany. That's what every civilization says just before the pattern completes itself. The pattern does not care about exceptionalism. It does not care about innovation. It answers only to mathematics, to the unchanging reality that when a currency is debased, savers are destroyed and asset holders are rewarded every single time. No exceptions in 2,000 years. Here's the reality check. If your wealth is stored in cash, savings accounts, or fixed income instruments, you are standing on the wrong side of history. The pattern shows with absolute clarity that currency debasement always shifts wealth away from those holding the currency and toward those holding real assets, land, equities, commodities, things that cannot be created out of thin air. The $124 trillion wealth transfer is not a payout coming your way. It is a siphon. And unless you understand how this machine operates, you're not inheriting wealth. You're funding someone else's inheritance. So what do? First, stop waiting for an inheritance that statistically is not coming. Second, understand that your savings are being systematically diluted through ongoing monetary expansion as you watch this unfold. Third, position yourself on the correct side of the wealth transfer by holding assets that rise when currency weakens. This pattern has repeated for 2,000 years. It is repeating right now in 2024 in the United States. And the only question that matters is whether you recognize it before stage 4 finishes. The machine was built centuries ago. It is operating exactly as designed. The great wealth transfer of 2024 is not a windfall. It is the endgame of a pattern that played out in Rome, Weimar Germany, the Nixon era, and now America, reaching its climax today. Right now, subscribe. Because in the next video, I'll show you exactly how this machine was built, who built it, and the 3 specific actions you can take immediately to position yourself before the final stage completes. This is not financial advice. This is pattern recognition.